Under the pale haze of Gaza's skyline, the hum of military engines fades into a brittle silence. For the first time in weeks, the Israeli army has begun what officials call a tactical pullback, a coordinated movement of troops from the Gaza Strip following the declaration of a fragile ceasefire. The images, released by the Israel Defense Forces and verified, show soldiers adjusting their operational positions, rifles slung low, vehicles turning toward the southern perimeter. It is a scene both ordinary and extraordinary, a routine maneuver captured in the midst of a conflict that has left deep scars across the land. The official IDF footage, silent and steady, offers a rare glimpse inside the final hours before the withdrawal began. In wide shots, troops can be seen communicating by gesture, repositioning armored vehicles, and scanning the horizon. There is no soundtrack, no commentary, only the motion of men and machines against the dust-filled air. Behind this mute imagery lies a complex political moment. The ceasefire, announced late Thursday night, follows days of intense diplomatic pressure from Washington, Cairo, and Doha. US officials describe it as a temporary humanitarian pause intended to allow the evacuation of the wounded and the delivery of much-needed aid. For Israel, the decision to scale back its ground presence marks a delicate balancing act between domestic expectations of security and the growing international demand for restraint. The IDF insists that this is not a full withdrawal, but rather a realignment of forces designed to prepare for what it calls the next operational phase. On the ground, though, perception matters. To many Palestinians, the sight of tanks moving away, if only slightly, feels like an opening, a rare pause in a relentless cycle. In neighborhoods shattered by months of bombardment, families emerge cautiously from the rubble, unsure whether the silence will hold. Israeli military correspondents briefed at dawn were told that troops were adjusting operational zones across multiple sectors. That phrase, adjusting operational zones, has been used before, often signaling a controlled redeployment rather than a full retreat. Yet every such maneuver carries symbolic weight. It acknowledges that something fundamental has shifted, even if only for a moment. At the same time, inside Israel's war cabinet, tensions remain. Security chiefs urge vigilance, politicians argue over timing. Hardline ministers warn that any sign of weakness could embolden Hamas, while others emphasize the humanitarian cost of continued fighting. Across the border, international observers track the movement with satellite imagery and humanitarian mapping tools, noting changes in troop density near key junctions such as Khan Yunis and Deir al-Bala. Meanwhile, in Tel Aviv, the government has described the ceasefire as conditional and reversible. That phrase underscores the fragility of the moment. One misstep, one rocket, one mistaken strike could unravel the entire pause within hours. Diplomats familiar with the talks say the ceasefire was brokered through back-channel negotiations involving Egypt, Qatar, and US envoy Steve Witkoff. Each side, they say, made narrow but critical concessions. Israel agreed to halt major offensives in central Gaza. Hamas pledged to suspend cross-border rocket launches. The footage released by the IDF is therefore more than just military documentation. It is political messaging. It signals control, discipline, and the capacity to pivot. In the visual language of modern warfare, a steady pullback can speak louder than 1,000 statements. Yet for families still searching for loved ones, these images of soldiers moving away offer little comfort. Hospitals in Rafah and Khan Yunis remain overwhelmed. Aid convoys now permitted to cross under international supervision, crawl through debris-filled roads. Every truck that enters carries the weight of expectation. On social media, Israeli officials have emphasized that troops will maintain defensive readiness even as they relocate. The IDF spokesperson's office framed the pullback as part of an ongoing assessment of security priorities. Analysts interpret this as an effort to ease regional tensions without declaring the operation complete. In the broader geopolitical theater, the ceasefire serves multiple purposes. For Washington, it provides breathing room before next week's APEC summit, where US President Donald Trump and Chinese President Xi Jinping are expected to meet. For regional actors like Egypt and Jordan, it offers a chance to reassert diplomatic relevance after months of frustration. But for ordinary people, those walking north through ruined streets, clutching whatever remains of their homes, the political calculus means little. What matters is that for the first time in months, the shelling has stopped. The air is still. The camera lingers on a cluster of soldiers packing equipment into armored carriers. Dust swirls around them. There are no faces clearly shown, only silhouettes against a bright horizon. The anonymity feels deliberate. Each soldier a representation of a larger force, each movement choreographed for precision. Analysts at AFP note that the footage's lack of sound is typical of IDF operational releases. Silence ensures no operational detail, such as spoken commands or environmental cues, is revealed, but it also adds a haunting layer to the images. Without audio, viewers are left to fill the void with imagination, the echo of distant artillery, the murmur of wind over sand, the unspoken uncertainty of men leaving a battlefield that may soon call them back. Journalistically, these 34 seconds encapsulate a paradox, a moment of movement that represents both progress and fragility. The act of pulling back can signal success, mission completed, or exhaustion, stalemate reached. It depends entirely on perspective. Back in Jerusalem, the government's communications office has framed the operation as a step toward recalibrating military presence. Opposition leaders, however, accuse the administration of lack of transparency. The public has the right to know whether this is victory or negotiation, one lawmaker said in a press conference. In Gaza, the humanitarian agencies are cautious. They've seen ceasefires come and go. The United Nations Relief and Works Agency reports that more than 90% of Gaza's population remains displaced. The challenge now is logistics, how to deliver aid without reigniting conflict. For journalists on the ground, every convoy, every movement of troops becomes a signal, a barometer of what may come next. Veteran correspondents recall similar scenes during previous wars, troops realigning lines ahead of diplomatic breakthroughs or pulling back to regroup before renewed offensives. History offers both hope and warning. By the 8th minute, the voiceover turns reflective. Beyond the tactics and timelines, there is the human dimension. The soldiers in the footage are young, most in their early 20s. For them, this ceasefire might feel like a pause in a lifetime of rotations, one war ending, another waiting. In the camps, Palestinian families interpret the pullback differently. To them, it is proof that international pressure can work, that global outrage after months of civilian suffering can translate into actual pauses on the ground. Some dare to hope that this 72-hour lull could evolve into a broader peace initiative. Still, skepticism remains. Israeli analysts warn that Hamas has used past ceasefires to rearm and regroup. Defense officials maintain aerial surveillance, wary of any movement that might violate the truce. The broader narrative then becomes one of tension between restraint and readiness. Every kilometre of withdrawal is weighed against risk. Every hour of silence measured against fear of betrayal. As night falls over Gaza, the horizon glows faintly with fires still smouldering in the distance. The official footage ends, but the story does not. Beyond the lens, the reality continues. Soldiers repositioning, families searching, diplomats calculating. The ceasefire's success will depend not on declarations, but on discipline, on whether both sides can resist the gravitational pull of retaliation. Toward the end of the voiceover, the journalist's tone softens. This is what ceasefires often look like. Not banners of victory, not parades, but quiet, uncertain movements caught in the dust. In those few silent frames, the entire complexity of the Gaza conflict is distilled. Power and vulnerability, control and chaos, war and the fragile hope of peace. The footage, shot by the Israeli army, may last only 34 seconds, but its implications stretch far beyond the moment, into boardrooms where decisions are made, into refugee camps where futures are uncertain, and into the collective memory of a region that has known too many endings and not enough beginnings. No narration follows, no music swells, just silence, the same silence that began the video, now layered with the weight of what viewers have seen and what they have yet to understand. And in that silence, one question lingers. Is this the beginning of peace or just another intermission in an unending war?